Hello, everyone, and this week in the world of farming games, we have some very interesting news. So, Fae Farm is coming to PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X and S. Super Zoo Story, which could be described as Stardew Valley meets Zoo Tycoon, after years of development, is now starting their Kickstarter campaign. And we have a brand new trailer for Farmagia, which is the newest IP from Marvelous, the developers behind Star F Seasons and Rune Factory. I covered all of these topics in this week's solo episode of the Game and Garden podcast, and you are about to watch that news segment. But if you're interested in watching the full episode, where I also give you all of my thoughts on this week's releases, so Dreamland Farm, Garden of the Sea, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, then I'll have a link to the full episode in the description. But for now, enjoy this week's news. The first bit of news for today, we have Fae Farm coming to PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S. This is so tedious to say all of these Xboxes and stuff. On October 22nd. This game released last year in September for Switch and Steam. So now it will become available to pretty much all platforms. So for those who have never had the chance to play it, now they will be able to. And on all of these platforms, there will be a standard edition and a deluxe edition that will come with the DLC. When I first played this game, I had the deluxe edition, but the DLC was not out yet. And I did go back to the game after the DLC released. So if you don't know, the first DLC unlocks a new area and you learn a new skill where you can like tame these little creatures, these little critters, and they give you some buffs, which I think would have been very useful if I had access to those from the beginning of the game. It would have made some of the areas and just progressing in the game a bit more fun. And then the second DLC adds a whole new like town area with a new cave, temple thing with platforming and some puzzles. I think there's definitely more substance to the second DLC. I did go back to it also a little bit. But because I was pretty much done with the rest of the game, I think I was not really in the mood to like really get back into it to do that extra world. But I think that if you have the money for the deluxe edition, it could be worth it. And I think the DLC will enhance your experience a bit. That being said, like I mentioned before the news segment, so I'm gonna make it quick here. I had a good time with Fae Farm for the first playthrough. It feels good, it looks good, but it feels a bit shallow. There's not too much innovation with the gameplay mechanics. It doesn't do much that other farming sims don't do. The social aspect of the game, like the character interactions or the festivals, are simply not that great. If you're looking for a mindless farming sim to play through once, I think it's good, but it's not going to be the kind of game that I would go back to over and over again. I don't think I'm ever going to do a second playthrough. So it's a fine game. I would describe it as fine. Now we're going to be having a look at the Kickstarter campaign for Super Zoo Story. And I have to say I was a bit shocked when they announced that they were doing a Kickstarter campaign for this game because it's been in development for over 3 years. And I honestly thought we were about to see this game releasing any moment now. I thought I was going to play this one this year. But actually, no, it won't release until the second half of 2026. Usually we see Kickstarter campaigns pretty early in development, and this one is coming in like the second half of the development. So maybe it's something they had to do to like assure that the game was going to get done. But yeah, we're going to have a quick look at it. So they have now raised 36,000 US dollars out of 60,000. And this game is being made by a pretty small team of like 3 people. There's Ihor and his wife Anna and their friend Alexi. So there are 3 people working on this game, so it is pretty small. And also, I know that they are being published by Crytivo. And one thing I've noticed is that a lot of indie games that go with Crytivo for publishing end up doing a Kickstarter. So maybe it's something that they're trying to push or try to like incentivize their developers to do. If you've never heard of this game, I would describe it as Stardew Valley meets Zoo Tycoon. And there was actually a little bit of controversy when this game was first announced because a lot of the assets were so close to the ones in Stardew Valley. And they did change some things a little bit. So actually Concerned Ape, the developer of Stardew Valley, reacted and did say that he would love if the developers would like find their own style a little bit more, and they did, I think, apologize at one point, and they kind of worked on things. So it still definitely has that Stardew Valley feel to it. Even like the animations, the running animations, the trees look very similar. And some people will say, well, it's pixel art, it's a game with farming, of course they're going to look similar. But I will say that they look very similar. I think there's like thousands of ways to do pixel art and have it look unique. There's definitely a lot of similarities here. But the good thing is, though, is that the gameplay is very unique. So there will be farming, fishing, romance, taking care of animals, everything you would expect in your typical farm sim, life sim. But the animals part, so you're not going to be just doing ranching, but you will be managing a whole zoo in this game. So that's where the zoo tycoon part comes in. So you'll have tons of different animals, 70 different species that you will be able to crossbreed. Every animal will have different needs, so like a different diet, or they will have different wants for their enclosure. Some animals won't do well if they're with another animal. For example, if you put a gazelle and a lion together, it probably won't end up well, but others will do good together. So you'll have to take that into account, which reminds me a bit of Paleo Pines. I think even though Paleo Pines had lots of flaws, it did a real good job at making each dinosaur feel unique. And there were so many little things that you had to take into account while taking care of them. So it seems like, yeah, similarly here, there's going to be a big emphasis on making sure that the habitat is right and that all of your animals are happy. And I'm just loving that we are seeing other games in this like farm sim genre, but taking a completely different approach. And like there are lots of games where you manage a zoo, like you've got like Zoo Tycoon, Planet Zoo, but these are management games. Whereas this one, it's really like a life sim, but you manage a zoo. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like this is so unique. Another unique feature of this game is that instead of mining, you will be doing some archaeology, and you'll find some fossils of dinosaurs. And eventually, you'll be able to bring these dinosaurs back to life. So hopefully, it doesn't end up like in Jurassic Park. But yeah, so you'll have dinosaurs in your zoo as well as regular, normal animals. There's also going to be underwater exploration, kind of like in Coral Island, where you'll find some fish and you'll be able to breed those fish as well. There is really a lot on their Kickstarter campaign. So if you want to see all of the features, you want to see how much you need to back this game, have access to the different builds, all of the rewards, I'll put a link, so feel free to check it out by yourself. But quickly, I'm going to be sharing the timeline with you. So right now, they are doing the Kickstarter campaign. In the second half of 2025, they'll be doing the alpha. So if you give a certain amount of money to the campaign, you'll have access to that. And in the first half of 2026, the beta, and second half of 2026, the full release. There are some stretch goals right now. So if they get, for example, 210,000 US dollars, they will be adding console support. 250, they will be adding family and kids system. So I don't know how far they're going to get in these stretch goals. So personally, I will be playing this game when it releases. I think, even though I'm not a big fan of how close the art style is to Stardew Valley, I think the gameplay sounds very unique. So I'm going to be giving it a chance. And I'm glad to see that they already got over 50% of their funding in like one day. So I have absolutely no doubt that in the next 28 days, they'll be able to complete their campaign. And last piece of news for today, Marvelous released a character trailer for Farmagia, where we can get to see a little bit more of the gameplay and the different characters that we're going to be playing as in this game. If you're not familiar with what Farmagia is, it is the newest IP from Marvelous. So they're doing Story of Seasons, Rune Factory, and on November 1st, we're going to be getting Farmagia. The game will be split into 3 phases. So in the first phase, you will be farming monsters. So you're going to be planting like monster seeds, you'll water them, and then you'll actually harvest monsters. And in the second phase, you're going to be giving items to these monsters to train them and make them stronger. And then in the third phase, which is what we see the most of in this trailer, you'll be able to farm, 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 far you'll go in dungeons with these monsters, and like you have armies of monsters, and you'll just send them attacking these bosses and fight. And then you'll repeat the cycle, go back to farming, raise more monsters, train them, go back into more dungeons. And yeah, I'm really happy with this trailer because we get to see a little bit more of the gameplay. We don't see much of the farming. Like I said, it's mostly on the combat. And it seems like you'll have 4 buttons. So Y, X, A, and B, obviously. And each button will be associated with a type of monster. So I'm guessing you'll have to take into account like elemental attributes and things like that to send the correct monster to deal as much damage as possible. It almost reminds me of Pikmin in a way, just because you're controlling so many monsters at once. Maybe a mix of like Pikmin and Dynasty Warriors, because it looks very chaotic. There is a lot happening on the screen. And yeah, I'm very excited for this game. I don't think this is going to be like the game of the year or anything like that, but it could be a really fun time if it is executed well. So I hope there's going to be a good amount of difficulty, a good amount of strategy into like, maybe you'll have to make sure you use the right monsters against the right enemies. And it seems like you'll be able to switch between the character that you're playing as. So you'll have this party of people, and it seems like you'll be able to switch. So maybe each one will have different skills. So hopefully that is something you'll have to take into account. It's definitely not like any other farming game, and I don't know if we can really use the words farming game for this one, even though there will be a little bit of farming and it is part of the game. But the combat seems interesting, and I can't wait to see more. I can't wait to learn more about this game. It is releasing on November 1st for PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. And you can pre-order the game now for PS5 and Switch if you want a physical edition. And they have like a premium edition that comes with an art book, the soundtrack, and the game. So I will make sure to get my day one edition, I think they call it. The only thing that kind of annoys me a little bit with this game, at least based on this trailer, it seems like all the cutscenes will be kind of like visual novel style, where you just have the character portraits talking, which is very similar to, for example, El Rentero's Wanderings, which was a dungeon crawler that released not too long ago. That was a lot of fun, but I have a really hard time. Even when the story is interesting, I have a hard time when all of the dialogues are in this visual novel style. I need it to be a little bit more stimulating, a little bit more engaging, and that format just makes me want to skip through all of the text. So hopefully they manage to not make the dialogue like go for too long. Hopefully they manage to keep it like engaging. Maybe we'll have some actual proper cutscenes from time to time. I think that would be lovely. But yeah, this has the potential to be something fun, maybe on par with like games like El Rentero's Wanderings, Silent Hope. Even though the gameplay is different from these games, the loop is similar, where there's like a phase where you farm or craft, do things like that, and then there's the dungeon phase. So I feel like it will have a similar feel. And even though these two games, like El Rentero's Wanderings and Silent Hope, were flawed, I really enjoyed them for what they were. So I'm going to put my expectations on the same level as these two games, and I think I won't be too disappointed. But yeah, so this releases on November 1st. So that is pretty much it for this week's news. If you'd like to hear my thoughts on Dreamland Farm, Garden of the Sea, as well as The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, feel free to watch the full episode, which I will have linked in the description. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more, and I'll see you all next week. Bye bye.